Hello there YouTube, it's your Webby3, back to another kicking graphic novel review. Today we're looking at a book we've never looked at before from a publisher we rarely visit, The Mask Omnibus, Volume 1, from Dark Horse Books. Or Dark Horse Comics, whatever you want to call it. I don't review a lot of Dark Horse. I've been doing a bit more recently since I've been pretty into Hellboy and the Magnolaverse. But, I really wanted to try The Mask. So I picked up The Mask Omnibus, Volume 1, gave it a read, and I enjoyed it. You know, it didn't really blow my mind or anything, but it was a very enjoyable book. Let me read you the back of it real quick, actually. The best-selling comic trilogy that inspired the blockbuster film, The Mask, is collected in this omnibus edition of gruesome hilarity. A weird mask of unknown origin and power is discovered and imbues its wearer with limitless cartoon character invulnerability that takes the nerdy Stanley Ipkiss, the police, the mafia, and the monstrous mob muscleman Walter on a violent collision course of homicidal mayhem, lunacy, and destruction. Collects the mask returns, and the mask strikes back. Fun! So, a lot of people worked on this book. John Arcudi, I'm going to mispronounce every single name, by the way, so prepare for that. Doug Mank, or Doug Mankey, however you say it. Big fan, by the way. Matt Webb, Keith Williams, Rich Perota, Chris Shalanor, Gregory Wright, Pat Brosu, David Jackson. I don't know if that's Lois Buhalis or Louise Buhalis. Sorry about that. But I believe at its core, the story of The Mask is about power. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Well, the story of The Mask seems to be about an artifact, the mask itself, that makes people pretty much all powerful. It gives you cartoon physics, you know, lets you warp reality, makes you invulnerable, super strong, which makes for some incredibly fun visuals, by the way, and some great gags in this comedy, action, kind of sometimes even horror to a point book. But yeah, it is about the powerful nature of the mask corrupting. A lot of people who put on the mask intend to use it for evil, for personal gain. But a lot of people that put it on do actually want to do good with it. The first person that wears it is Stanley Ipkiss. He gets it as a gift for his girlfriend. His girlfriend is actually a bigger character in the trilogy than he is. He's the main wearer for the first book. And he's a bit of a loser. And you can see that he has a lot of deep-seated anger issues. And he's not a particularly good boyfriend either. And the mask, with its power, he just kind of goes on a murder spree. He just becomes a serial killer. Anyone in his way, he kills. Anyone who even slightly ticks him off, he kills. He kills a guy because he owes him some money. $60, which was a lot more than it is now when this was written. But still, imagine violently torturing and killing someone over $60. I mean, wow. Wow. But even when he's not wearing the mask, he kind of becomes like a right-wing gun nut. Pretty wild. And eventually, it does lead to his death, his misuse of this powerful tool. And he becomes known as the Big Head Killer. And then whoever wears the mask from that point on, they all think it's the same person, this Big Head Killer, because it gives you a giant green head. But Ipkiss is defeated, eventually. Not by the cops, who think they've defeated him, but they haven't, but by his girlfriend. She takes him out at the end of the day. And takes the mask for herself. She puts it on to make sure it works, and then ends up killing him, which is, you know, not great. And she does not really seem to feel bad about it, I think because she knows that it was really the mask that did it, and not really her. but her name's Kathy, by the way. She goes to the lieutenant, whose name I can't remember. I remember her name. I don't remember the lieutenant's name. I just remember him as the lieutenant. She tells him about the mask, tells him not to put it on. He, of course, doesn't believe her. And when he does put it on, he's like, hey, I can finally go after all the crime bosses that are protected by corruption and stuff. And yes, he becomes a vigilante with it, which is still a serial killer, just a different kind of serial killer. And you can see the mask driving him insane much more slowly than it did Ipkiss. Ipkiss was already kind of on the brink. You know what I mean? But eventually, this cop does realize that the mask is corrupting him after it causes him to nearly intentionally kill his best friend. And the mask is clearly sentient. It'll talk to whoever wears it. But that's kind of the whole first Mask epic. And then we get to The Mask Returns, where the lieutenant, who's no longer wearing it, goes to get it when his home is invaded by the mob. And then the mob gets a hold of it, and then this stuttering, kind of wimpy driver for the mob ends up putting it on. And he kind of uses it to become a mob boss. And he might even actually be the cartooniest of all the mask wearers. Like, he might really be the one that's the most of a cartoon. Very interesting. But this is where we start to get a bit more Walter. Walter is in the first Mask, and he's this kind of big Frankenstein-looking gray guy almost, who seems to just enjoy causing pain, even to himself. Like, there's one point where a mob boss is talking to him, and he's just cutting his own face like it's nothing. There's a point where he's in a hardware store, and he's putting nails into his own hand, just seemingly to do it. Very crazy stuff. But Walter seems to be the only guy who can take a pummeling from the Mask, and the Mask seems to be all Walter comes to care about. He's a non-verbal character who fights pretty much anyone who wears the mask. Even if it's a lady. That's right. You know who gets the mask. She puts it on mostly to help out. She wants to actually use it for good, but she's mostly in control of herself, to be completely honest. But she does very quickly see that the lieutenant was right, and she was right at the beginning. Even she can't handle it. And it seems like maybe she and the lieutenant might be starting to get close, but it doesn't really super seem romantic or anything, so I guess it works out. But then, we see these friends find it. They're young adults. One is like a stoner who's always confused, and the other's like a rebellious punk guy who liked the big head killer because he stuck it to the man. One of them is just a jerk who wants to be a rock star but isn't any good at it and doesn't care to work to become good at it. And then the other is like this stereotypical 80s, 90s nerd character who uses this super enhanced vocabulary and seems to always be smart and know what's going on. And he does look exactly like you'd imagine, with his button-up tucked-in shirt and his big round glasses. But yeah, the punk, I don't remember any of their names, by the way. I'm sorry, okay? So many of these characters are short-lived. But the punk finds it first, and he uses it to stick it to the man, and then the friends kind of toss it around. The punk is like, oh man, this thing is making me behave in ways that I just really don't want to behave. So I'm going to get rid of it. Then the rock star friend puts it on, and he wants to use it to become a rock star, clearly. But the mask kind of takes him away from his dream. He can't use it to get what he wants because the mask has such a mind of its own. There's a lot going on. The stoner friend puts it on because he wants it to like make him smarter, less confused. Basically, he wants it to turn him into a post-pothead version of himself. And it does visually, because the mask can shapeshift and stuff, but it like makes his vision incredibly weird, almost like he's on shrooms 24/7, and it's real horrifying. It's like a permanent bad trip for him, which is pretty insane. And Walter is running around fighting each one of these versions of the mask. They each have a run-in with Walter, because he's trying to take the mask from them. And then, you know, they give it to the nerd, who wants to use it to become a superhero, which is a little different than when it was used to become a vigilante. But he also ends up having a big brawl with Walter in a cemetery after the zoo. And I kind of love the end of this. You know, all these young men realize how bad the mask is for them, and Walter finally gets his hands on it. Walter, this insane, psychopathic hulk of a man, gets the mask. He goes to put it on, and it falls right off his face. The dude is such a gigantic Hulk Frankenstein of a man that the mask is too small to fit on his face, and therefore he can't activate it. What an incredible end. And then Walter, like he doesn't even care, just chucks it away. He just chucks it away. And there's a more visual, metaphorical ending with like a monarch butterfly and a bird. But all in all, this was a very entertaining book, you know? It's just a trio of stories with really cool, fun cartoon visuals set in a realistic setting about how power corrupts. No matter what good intentions you have, the power corrupts you. You can't escape the corruption. It's the nature of the mask, and to an extent, the nature of human beings. Now you might be thinking, where does the mask itself come from? Well, I don't know. There are hints to it. I know in the movies, I think it was like Loki or something, because there was that really terrible Son of the Mask sequel, which I've seen, but I don't know if I've seen the original Mask all the way through, to be completely honest. If I have, it's been super long. I can remember snippets, but God, that movie showed on TV regularly when I was little, but both of them did. But I just can't remember much of either of them. But I know I've at least seen the second one all the way through. I'm sure I've seen the first one all the way through, it's just been longer. Anyway, Son of the Mask says it's Loki. From the hints we got in this book, I don't think it's a Loki thing. It really looks... I don't know, the people who made the mask didn't look Norse. That's all I'm saying, in the little flash we got of its past. But, you know, we get, like, these cool cover galleries in the back. There's only a few covers because, you know, big trades and stuff. And I do think that I am going to read the next one. The next Omnibus. Will I do it soon? Probably not soon. But I do intend to do it. Because I did enjoy this one. I did. It's only 2 omnibuses right now. But I'll get the second one at some point. Maybe when it's on sale or something. But, by the way, my The Mask Omnibus Volume 1 is 2nd edition. Just in case anyone wanted that specific. But it's a good book. Very interesting art style. Fun stories. It's really a book where you just sit back and enjoy the ride, you know? It has seemingly a deeper meaning to it, but it doesn't distract from anything actually going on. So that's it. Thank you all very much for your support. Remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. Check out all the cool links in the description below, Facebook, Twitter, etc. I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.